So before we dive into today's topic, I wanted to take a moment and say thanks for all the support y'all have sent my way while I've been away. I've missed y'all dearly. Feeling the love from this community has been incredibly uplifting. Most of you probably don't have the full backstory around my recent absence, but I lost a close family member quite suddenly. At the same time, I was already juggling a number of personal health issues, all of which became even harder to manage in the wake of that loss. Needless to say, it's been a tough couple of months and life has been pretty destabilized. I ended up effectively taking a 10-week sabbatical that I've been gradually returning from, and today's episode is actually heavily influenced by how we handled that here at Opula. On a more fun note, I've been meaning to share that I've been going by Lucy, and I use she, her pronouns now. So don't be surprised as you see a lot of my socials get updated as I roll this out over time. Through it all, I'm really grateful to have this community in my life, and with that said, let's get back into it.
Hello, and welcome to the Open Hardware Manufacturing Podcast, the podcast about making open source hardware. My name is Stephen Hawes.
And I'm Lucy Chapar.
And today we are talking about the bus test, which is actually technically known as the bus factor. This has been something we've talked about on the show before, and something that you and I talk about all the time, and was also recently put into practice. This was not a suggestion, this is one that we just haven't talked about yet, which is kind of interesting that we have never brought this up before.
This topic was kind of picked for us.
It kind of was picked for us, yes. It has become very relevant as of late, and it's good to have you back.
Yeah, it's good to be back.
I missed you.
I missed you too. Everyone here.
So, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to obviously just start off with defining what the bus test is, or at least how we define it, as we've come to talk about it here at Opula, and I think on the podcast a fair amount, right?
Yeah, it's definitely came up plenty of time.
Okay, yeah, I think it has. But just for thoroughness,
Yeah.
it is how well does an organization respond if a member is theoretically hit and killed by a bus. Like, if someone just airdrops out and is gone, how easily is that taken care of? Like, does the organization continue? Is it completely reliant on one person?
And as we'll go into this, sometimes they're not gone forever, but this can be related to someone being out for a while.
Yeah. Or even down to like someone calls out sick.
Yeah.
You know, if one person can do a thing, like on Fridays, Steven has to print this label or whatever, and then I'm sick on a Friday, what happens? You know, it's like even down to that scale. This is actually like formally called the bus factor. And I did a little poking into this. I don't even remember how we even started referring to the bus test here, but supposedly it started with Guido van Rossum, who is like, used to be the benevolent dictator, quote unquote, of Python. And someone in an email thread in 1994 was like, yo, what happens if he dies? Like, what happens to Python? Some businesses don't want to use Python because it's kind of dependent on one dude.
Right.
Why this is fragile. So that's what it is. But I didn't realize it came from that, which is kind of cool.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, I was poking into it.
That's
I don't remember
fine.
how we started. Was it you or I don't even know where it came from, but it's been in our lexicon for a while now.
Maybe we snagged it from Forum Labs.
It might have been Forum Labs too.
I'll say it's a pretty ominous thing to consider, but by preemptively planning for it and thinking about it, it really takes the cognitive load off when it comes to it.
Totally. Yeah, it makes it way more chill if and when, you know, even just like we said, all the way down to being out sick, all the way up to someone's just gone.
Or just someone took a vacation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, our kind of like take on this, and I think I still stand by this. I don't know. You tell me if you disagree. Is that like early stage startups should fail the bus test, but only just. So like if one of the core members of an early company does suddenly leave, it may not be a bad thing if they haven't written down literally everything they've done, because that's like a lot of infrastructure for like a team that just needs to be scrappy and make things happen.
Yeah.
You know, like maybe you're spending too much time writing things down. Like the company wasn't destined to succeed if that's the case kind of thing. I don't know. Do you still agree with this? I've been thinking about this as we were preparing for this episode.
It's tough, right? I think when one person represents the whole department, it would be a lot for them to fully document what they're doing.
Yeah.
And make it fully handoffable.
Yeah.
I think about when we were doing BYOP days and you do engineering and I was up all night doing sourcing, like,
yeah,
it would have been really detrimental for me to just take the time to write everything down and explain the whys and how. I was just in do it mode. And I think for an early startup, that was pretty okay.
Yeah.
I think Opula is a little bit aging out of that.
I agree.
Yeah. Like I'd like to be able to packetize any type of work that goes on here, turn it into an SOP and like hire for it.
Yeah. Have it be handoffable.
Yeah.
And well documented and formalized and like the adult version, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that I guess I still agree with that. It just depends on at what point you decide to do that. Cause like we did formalize like SOP stuff. Like for example, when we hired our first technician to build kits, that was stuff that needed to be formalized. So we've almost kind of done a lot of this as necessary. But you also have been pretty good about doing a lot of it preemptively too.
Yeah, my general strategy has been that if I'm asking someone to do something, they need to have instructions to follow.
Yeah.
I like to have people feel the warm hug of guide rails from an SOP.
Right. Yeah. To have it unambiguous if you're doing the thing right.
Mm-hmm.
But you've also written a lot of SOPs for things that it was only ever you that would have done them, that I found incredibly useful. So like you've also kind of even jumped ahead of that necessity, which has been great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because eventually Opula might have a purchasing engineer that's not me.
Right. Yep. And they need to kind of know the process of what you've gone through. And yeah, that's true. So we're kind of moving into this right now. And as we'll talk about later, how we recently kind of dealt with some of this, we got hands-on experience of like, what does this mean to like suddenly deal with a role not being filled anymore? So there's a few things that we put down of like, how do you actually pass the bus test? How do you make sure that someone can airdrop out for a bit and everything's going to be okay?
As we just said, first and foremost, standard operating procedures.
Yes.
And lots of them for lots of things.
Yeah. That when we say SOP, it's standard operating procedure, which is just like a guide, right?
Yep.
Just a formal way to say that.
One of our core ones is OHI, the Open
Yes.
Hardware Assembly Instructions. There's both docs on there for how to make the products we sell, but there's also docs on there for how to carry out the operations we perform, be it making a shipping label, purchasing from LCSC, running the print farm, what have you.
Yep. Just pack out even. I mean, like there's a lot of stuff codified in that, which is great. So yeah, that's a huge SOP. Also, like pretty much, I think for the most part, any process that we go through internally that like has a set of steps. So like editing an order, making a replacement part, updating the print farm has a whole page in OHI. Even like when we hire someone new, we use this thing in Mattermost, which is like our Slack equivalent, called a playbook, which is, it's like a fancy checklist.
Yeah.
That just like, you make this checklist every time there's an instance of a thing happening. So like every time we hire someone, we just did this. We ran the playbook for onboarding new hire.
Yeah.
And it gives us the checklist of all these things need to happen. And like, that's codifying a process that like anyone could just run that and follow those instructions.
And it's awesome. It made like 14 tasks separated by categories, and it pre-assigns who's responsible with like the sequential due date based off the start date. It's a real nice system.
It's great. Yeah. Honestly, we could even do that for all kinds of stuff. Playbook's are nice. Is that a thing that you've seen before outside of Mattermost? I think I learned about this type of thing only in Mattermost.
A lot of Slack applications that integrate Jira or the likes of Jira seem to have similar things.
Okay.
Like any chat application meant for software engineering teams seem to have like an issue, and you can create an issue and it does something similar to what we're describing.
I see. Okay. Yep.
So not unique to Mattermost for sure.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. If anyone listening has used a different one before, I'd be curious of what other ones are out there, because I do like Mattermost quite a bit, and we probably won't shift away from it because we're pretty in the Mattermost ecosystem now. But yeah, I'd be curious if there's other ones that people use. I do like that a lot. It makes sense to have one of these for an organization.
I could even see us doing playbooks for Packout in the future.
That'd be cool. Yeah. All kinds of stuff.
Another great reason to write an SOP is like it can take just as much time to write it as it would be to train someone.
True. Yeah.
And by writing it down, you're making it so the second person that needs to learn it just gets it for free. So by removing yourself from having to train each time someone needs to learn something, it just perpetuates knowledge, and it's really good for that. Like, I don't want to sound too obvious here, but like I'd rather write something down and have someone read it than to just say it aloud. Yeah.
Like we just hired a new employee like 2 weeks ago or something. And when she was jumping on the line, starting to make stuff, the first thing she did was read a OHI page and take a crack at it. It's like, you don't need to spend that time, at least to get her going. You know, if there's questions or whatever, you probably want a person there. But as much as you can codify and remove yourself from the situation, the better, the more flexible it is. And every time that happens, you get to tweak it and tune it and make it better too, which is nice. Instead of having to shoot from the hip with a live training every time and maybe, you lose some stuff.
Yeah, and that's how you end up with a staff where everyone does something a little bit differently.
Right.
And that's not scalable. It's not sustainable. It's stressful to everyone.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, a lot of good reasons to do it that way. So just codifying this in an SOP or a playbook, having like instructions to follow is the obvious and most direct way that you can like get information out of your head. You write it down. You codify it somehow.
I used to be so stressed at what I was carrying mentally for like the work we do here. And the more I could write down, the more assured I felt.
Yeah. It's a good thing to do. Another thing, this is kind of a mantra we have here that we'll say often. I really like this is it's where you'd expect to find it. So like literally for this record, when I wrote the outline, for this episode that we're recording right now, and I put the document into our Google Drive, I told Mitchell and you, I said, it's where you'd expect to find it, because our file structure system in Drive is borderline like deterministic. There is a place where everything can live. And it's impossible to make it perfect. Like, there's going to be how you decide to split things up. There's going to be some ambiguity, but like making sure that stuff is like everything has a home and you don't have to hunt around of like, well, where is that? Was that put in a weird place or on some other weird shelf? All of our screws are in one place. If we don't find any more screws there, we're out of screws. It's like, so also this goes for physical. I love this. Everything has a home. If you don't see it there, we don't have it.
Yeah. No, it's been handy.
Yeah.
And it takes effort to get there, and it's worth doing.
Yeah.
Our inventory management room used to be my mental palace. Or is that the right phrase? My mind palace.
Yeah.
And I'm like, people just constantly be like, hey, where is that? Where's this? And I'll be like, up, over here to the left.
Third shelf on the left, behind this box.
Tug your earlobe and wink.
Yeah, truly. It was like kind of spooky. Like, I'd spend like 10 minutes in that room looking for something, and I'd be like, hey, where is it? And you'd be like, oh, it's just look here behind this thing. And sure enough, it's just sitting there. I just glanced over it.
Yeah, on stage left of this box.
Right. Yeah.
But how much better is it now for having all the labels and signage?
It's so easy to find.
Yeah.
Because like if you were sick that day, I don't know where to find it. Maybe it's there. Maybe it's hidden. Like, again, it works well for early on where you're the only one reasonably in that room.
Mm-hmm.
But when other people have to interact with it, the information's got to be spread out a little more.
Yep.
So yeah, having that be clean cut is nice. And it does take time to maintain. Like, I think maybe every few months I'll go through our Google Drive and just comb through, and I'm like, yeah, this doesn't make sense to be here. Like, if I go and try and find a file in our drive or even a tool or something, and it's not where I first go to find it, and it wouldn't be disruptive to other people, I'll like move it to that place. So it's more intuitive to find it where it's supposed to go. And I think it's worth taking the time to do that.
I would agree.
Yeah. Yeah. So that helps a lot. I really do like that a lot. There's a great blog post written by Brad Feld, who's an early investor in Formlabs and MakerBot and a whole bunch of hardware companies, called The Three Machines, which is kind of like a way of thinking about a company, has like these three arms to it. I like it a lot. I think it's an interesting read. We'll put a link in the show notes about it. And it kind of talks about how you structure things conceptually at a company. And our drive pretty much follows that format. So that's a good structure that we've used so far, which I think has not gotten that long in the tooth. I think it's worked okay.
Another great thing you can do to help alleviate the perils of the bus test is to, at least every once in a while, pull someone into something they've never done before.
Yeah.
Like cross-training is really important.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want one person to be the specialist who's uniquely capable of performing an activity.
Yep. If someone becomes the blank person, kill that. Like, as much as you can, like what was it? I think it was last year you pulled me into Packout.
Yeah.
And that was a thing that you completely owned. I had nothing to do with it. Like, I was completely not connected to Packout.
You didn't want to think about it.
I didn't. And you know what? Like they say, like Thea just said in the last recording, like, yeah, whatever, specialization is for insects, like whatever. But specialization lets people get into a groove and do their thing really exceptionally well. So, but it's a balance as with all things. So like, yeah, it's good that I don't have to think about Packout that often because I'm doing other things and that's your thing to own. But I'm really glad you pulled me into it because now I understand how it works.
Yeah.
And it became very helpful for me recently. So like it's a good thing to do just to get people on the same page.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
And it's a little at odds with like, I have this notion of like, keep the programmers programming.
Yep.
Like Steven should be making YouTube videos or designing next gen stuff.
Yeah.
But everyone should know how to do Packout.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. The no extreme takes, like programmers programming with some exception. Sometimes it's good for the programmers to learn something else, or, it works out that way. Or like sometimes what I'll do is like, if I need to fix a jig or something gets busted or something like that, whoever was using it, I'll bring them with. And it's like, okay, you're going to learn a little more about what happened and like how this thing works. And like, what is that? 15 minutes? It doesn't take that long out of their day, but ultimately then they understand how it works better and maybe use it more effectively, or who knows what downward stream things come from that. Like, it's good to share that kind of information. And also sometimes they're just stoked on it and they want to see what is going on.
Yeah.
You know?
For me personally, I love knowing the context behind stuff and seeing behind the curtain. And the more I can share that to others on the team, the more confident they'll feel like acting in my stead.
Yeah. Yep. Totally. Totally. Yeah.
Like I don't want anyone on the production team doing things because they were told to. Like, I want them to understand why and not just feel like they're going through the motion.
Exactly. That, you know what? I've felt this quite a lot recently with Thea with pair programming because like Thea is 800 orders of magnitude better software engineer than I am. Like, no question. But she will still spend the time to pair program with me. And like, arguably, it's way more important for her to be working on her tasks and her work than it is to help me with whatever little software thing I have. But every once in a while, I'll grab her for some pair programming and I learn so much from it. I learn how she thinks. You know, we learn how we work as engineers better together. And like, it's a good thing to do, even though it's not the most perfectly efficient thing at all times. So yeah, it's good to pull people into that stuff. That helps a lot.
And it's fun.
And it's fun. That's true. That's true. That's true.
Cool.
Another thing, this is much more of a logistics thing, is account access. So like, if everything runs through one magical Gmail account, that's a single point of failure. That's not very good to do.
I've heard of companies that have gone under for this reason.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to name it. Just out of sheer like forgetting, but like not being able to run payroll because the CFO got food poisoning. Like, someone needs to be able to run payroll.
Yeah. That's so funny. Wow. Yeah. So like, account access is important. Single point of failure is bad. So I put a pretty jank system in place to support this right now, where like, if I get hit by a bus, only you know a specific location where the access keys to my like master account for everything is. And you can just brute force override, get into my stuff and keep Opula running. Yeah. If I get hit by a bus, like, that exists. So that was like I think we did that a long time ago, of just like we need a system in place in case that happens. And it would work and it could happen same day. Like, it would immediately be all right. But that sucks. And it's also not a great structure. Honestly, we're probably going to start shifting to this, of doing a lot of dedicated emails for stuff.
Yeah, it's so important that these types of assets are held by a company proper. Yeah. Because if, let's say, payroll was ran from Steven's personal bank account and he did in fact get hit by a bus. Yeah. When the bank learns of that account's frozen. Yeah. Yep. So like, the company needs to be the keeper of as much stuff as possible. Nothing could be on anyone personally. Yeah.
Yeah. It all has to be. So some of these examples are like, we already started doing some of this, like having a dedicated accounts receivable. So like, POs all get sent to one email that we have. And, we have our like sales at Opulo and support at Opulo. And, we have these kinds of things that will do some of this kind of thing. But it's nice to have like an administrative email that handles what account is used to sign into the health insurance portal, what account is used to pay the internet bill. Like, that kind of thing should probably be a generic admin account instead of like a personal email, or not a personal, but like a work email for a person, And
we've had good luck making these accessible to multiple people via Google Groups. Yeah. And subscribing to them.
Yes, exactly. So there's a lot of ways that you can help make this happen. Like, removing those single points of failure is huge.
Yeah. At first, when I set up the AP at email, it felt silly, but it's been so nice to just tell the vendors like, hey, you can send anything this way. Yep. I might be out of office one day, but Steven will still be available to push a invoice through and get the wire transfer going. Which
has happened a lot, actually. It's nice. That's where we get, that's where our landlord tells us to pay our electricity through. Yeah. And like, that's how I get, okay, time to write a check for electricity this month. Like that, it's all through that one portal. And like, if I'm out sick, you would see that too.
And so, what's even sicker is when you have these types of portals set up, they can forward into the right pipelines or tools. Yeah. Like AP@, will forward to our payment processing system. Sourcing at might trigger a purchasing notification on our PLM.
Sure. And sales and support goes to our CRM. Yeah. Like, you plumb it all up, Yeah.
Just using tools is great. Yeah. The more you can use tools here, the less important any particular person may be.
Yeah. Abstract people out of things. Sometimes what I'll even do is if I'm like writing an SOP or coming up with some kind of system, if I write a person's name in it, there's something wrong. Like, if I put in an SOP, ask Steven blank, that's codifying a person into a process. It should be ask the production manager, ask the HR manager, ask the electrical engineer on the team. You know what I mean? Like, it feels weird to put something that is time dependent in a long-term thing. I don't know. It just feels wrong.
I'm guilty of this because I just want people to explicitly know to come up to me.
That's true. And I think it's fine to start. Like, it's fine, but and I still do it. It just, I'm aware of the fact that what I'm writing has a time limit and is not evergreen. Yeah.
it's the right headspace for consideration.
Yep. And actually how you execute on it depends on your scale and the need for doing that kind of abstraction.
Mm-hmm.
Last big thing to think about here is the legal aspect. Everything we've said so far is like a good practice to have to like make information available, but it is just that. It is just a written down bit of information that people can use. It is not like a legal handoff process.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have this stuff codified legally, I believe it goes to probate and there's normal laws for like how stuff gets, spread out if you pass or whatever happens. That's messy and that's probably not what you want. So like, don't let probate court decide what happens with your organization. Make a plan with a lawyer. I'm in the middle of getting a lot of this much more severely codified now for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So this is important. Make sure you have a plan in a will, have your legal counsel for the company and for yourself set this kind of thing up once it's large enough that it's worth spending the time to do this for. And if it's important to make sure that control and shares and all these things get passed around different ways, it's incredibly important to do this too. Arguably, this is the most important thing to do because otherwise the thing could be in limbo. It's just messy. So make sure you get something on the books and get it legally codified.
And this is something you owe your customers to figure it out.
Yes.
This continuity is imperative.
Super important.
Like if I even think about the most extreme case, like if this building blew up with all of us in it, who refunds everyone's orders?
Right. Yeah, exactly. There needs to be a plan for that.
Yeah.
Like who makes the insurance claim if all of us are gone? Like that's deeply unlikely, but still like it's that needs to be thought of.
Yeah. Speaking more broadly, I learned so much about myself and what I might want from a process or a boundary just by thinking about like what's the most extreme edge case here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And getting that codified in like legalese is important.
Yep. That's one of the things I so appreciate about your perspective is like you really will find edge cases and you'll pull out what about this scenario? Like we also need to consider what would happen here. And like it's a great thing to be aware of.
Curse.
It is a curse. I'm sure it is quite a curse for you. You got to think about these things still.
If you don't, someone else will for you and you might not like.
And you might not like what they decide.
Yeah.
Don't leave it up to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, get your legal stuff squared away. Recently, we had to put a lot of this into action.
Yeah, we did.
For about 10 weeks, you had to be out.
Yeah, I had a pretty tragic family emergency I had to deal with, and I'm still dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
And it put me severely out of commission.
Yep.
For those 10 weeks, I was doing the bare minimum. I was in office maybe like 4 days in like 2.5 months.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Like I kept long-term purchase orders rolling and I answered questions, but for the most part, it was even running the show.
And you had stuff you had to deal with.
Oh yeah.
You had a lot of stuff and in many different aspects you needed to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so what that ended up being was, and it wasn't just me, like the rest of the team absorbed a ton of stuff as well. Like it was an interesting process seeing how it went because it did go pretty well. Like I don't think there were any disruptions in shipping. Stuff got a little tight with some sourcing stuff, but aside from that, we made it happen. It was hard, but we made it happen. It worked. And so much of this, we'll get into more of the specifics in a sec, but like you codified so many things that saved my ass. Like you made it possible. So thank you. Because otherwise it would have been impossible.
Which SOP was your Bible? Was it order fulfillment?
Honestly, the order fulfillment one was incredible. Because that was the one thing that I did that I knew the least about.
Mm-hmm.
Like I knew how to do some sourcing stuff. That wasn't too hard. And we'll get into how I screwed a lot of that stuff up anyway. But doing order fulfillment was hard. And you codified it so well. And the whole pack up process was fully SOP'd. And Adam literally had done it before. I misspoke before. You actually wrote that SOP about pack out, not just in case it needed to happen, but for Adam. Because Adam was doing the pack out process. Mm-hmm. So I remember the first time I did pack out, I said to Adam, I'm like, hey, let's sit down together. We're going to read through the SOP. You tell me what you remember and we're going to figure this out. And Lex knows what paperwork to expect because Lex usually does pack out on Saturdays. So like I had everything I needed across like 3 different sources to know if it was done correctly.
Yeah. And your goal was to not make Lex glitch out.
Exactly. If Lex looked at it and went, looks good, Steve, I'm good. I did it correctly enough, So that was huge. And I did make a handful of mistakes. Like I did mess up a couple things, but they were all fixable and everything arrived, everything, we didn't ship stuff late. Like all that stuff was all right. yeah, so that went really well.
Yeah, when I came back, I was really, really stoked to see that the wheels stayed on.
Yeah. Yeah, they did, because you set all that stuff up,
Mhm.
you know, and, you know, we tried a couple other things. We have a new rack system for how we keep track of paperwork for things. And, you know, we're trying different stuff out too. And, you know, but yeah, that actually went really well. You know, you set us up for success tremendously on that one, which is great.
Yeah. Then there was also the sourcing component too,
Yes.
which I'm sure wasn't easy. And
That was a little harder, but it was still fine. Like, for most of the parts, like, you've done such a thorough job of documenting where we get certain parts in Aligny, and like the method of procuring stuff is pretty freaking well documented in those. So for most parts that we were running out on, and honestly, it was that you weren't looking ahead for parts. We were more reactive and we were less proactive. So as things ran out, I could rush order stuff in. But some of the longer lead time things, you stayed on top of all the things that I couldn't do that for already,
Yeah.
you know?
There was a problem here that is pretty intertwined with the next aspect of it, which is the build.
Yes.
Like, I was able to do a lot of the vendor comms with like the more complicated relationships. Like, anytime WeChat was needed, or like an Alibaba communication, like, I usually finesse that when I had a minute here or there.
Yep.
And Steven really stuck to the off the shelf part.
Yep.
But you also managed the production lots and like creating the build in our PLM system.
That's true. Yeah. So like figuring out what we're making in a week, telling our production software what we're actually making this week, and making the quote unquote build, which is effectively telling it, hey, take all these parts and put it into one SKU of a lumen or whatever we're making. And I did it pretty wrong. I'd never done it before. And here's the problem. I thought I was doing it right, because I read through it and I kind of thought that was just from the website. Like, I thought I was doing it correctly. I think I was also a little hesitant to poke you about it, because I wanted to, you know, make sure you had this. I didn't want to bother you with work if I could help it. And maybe I should have poked you like maybe 2 more times just about how that process went. But I thought it was all fine. You know, I thought I was doing it the right way. But as you discovered when you got back, you had maybe, what was it, 3 or 4 days of kind of rearranging the PLM stuff
like
a little
2
bit.
weeks.
2? Yeah, no. Was it really 10 full days?
Yeah.
Yep. So we shipped and we got through it, but like, it was, that part didn't go great.
I'm laughing right now because I'm realizing there's a build management SOP that I have written. I just never showed you.
No. Wait, hold on. I'm looking through this now. No. Oh my good. Hitchhiker's Guide to Builds. No. No. Are you serious? Okay. Also, I'm mush for not like looking for this. I should have known you would have written this.
Yeah. It aged a little bit, but like, it was there.
Oh no. Oh, that's devastating. Rip.
Yeah.
All right. Well, crap.
My usual approach is like, I try to document everything so I could go away for 2 weeks and it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but I think the builds, like setting up our PLM, like our inventory system to be aware of what we're using up and like what's getting made, that was really the only part that was like not great, because I did not check for that. I didn't poke you enough. I guess I wasn't thorough enough in reading how it handled certain things that were irreversible that I thought were reversible. Like, there were a few things I just messed up.
Yeah. The exact challenge was that like, I was getting material to on site. Even was reactively purchasing things based off of our PLMs, like sourcing links. There were not POs associated with things arriving.
Yeah.
So inventory became Wild West.
Yeah.
We lost track of what we were depleting.
Yep.
We lost track of what we were receiving. And it's been an uphill battle to rectify that again.
And now we have to do something pretty significant to rectify it.
Yeah. We're going to have inventory day soon.
Yep. Which is a finessed weekend of you and me going through and counting every plicky we have in this office, every bolt, every screw, everything.
Yeah. I don't know how, about 600 unique parts, I believe. Over probably 100,000 different components.
Jeez. Yep. That's going to be a heck of a weekend.
100,000 pieces of things.
Mitchell's gesturing. Do you want to help? All right. You sign yourself over. We're going to get a 6-pack of beer. We're going to hang out. We're going to count. Oh man, it's going to be a long day. I'm sorry. This is truly my fault. We wouldn't have to do this if I had read that SOP.
If anyone's in the Pittsburgh area on June 21st, 2025, hit us up.
You want to come count?
Yeah.
We'll buy pizza and beer for you. Oh man. Yeah. So, but honestly, that's not terrible. And we've kind of been talking about doing an inventory day for a minute now. We've kind of been thinking about it. So like, this is kind of the kick in the pants to do it. But really that was tricky. And some of the sourcing stuff got a little tight, but also was totally fine. And it never held stuff up. So that was kind of it. Yeah. Like, am I wrong? Is there anything else that was like tough? You know, obviously missing you and like having to figure some of this stuff out was tricky. But like once we did, and once we read all your SOPs and stuff, we could do it.
Yeah. As it relates to inventory, ultimately what I cared about was that the production team had the pieces they needed to do their job, and that production was never halted because of an oversight or a lapse in judgment.
Yep.
And we guaranteed that we were able to do that. We were successful.
Yep.
A system broke. We're going to try to make it more ironclad.
Yeah, that's true. But there was no failure. Mm-hmm. Opulo's job of selling Lumen PNPs and accessories was upheld in the way that we promised. Mm-hmm. That is success.
Yep.
As defined by the organization. So like, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Just because we didn't use everything perfectly, it doesn't mean it went poorly. It just means it rotted in a way we didn't intend.
That's true. Yeah. That's a really good point. Mm-hmm. We still accomplished the goal, like wholeheartedly.
Yeah, it's just our toys didn't get put away right. Like, we still played.
That's funny. I like that. That's a good analogy. Oh, I missed your analogies. Your metaphors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They be back.
And then, yeah, once you came back, it was, I mean, really your first, and still lightly as you still need to, get some stuff buttoned up. But like once you were, doing more Opula work again, it was cleaning up my messes, putting my toys away metaphorically of like the inventory stuff and inventory day. That's kind of like the cleanup of the mess, and probably putting that SOP through its paces again for doing builds.
I'm not going to let you take all the blame. Like, I bought so much stuff reactionarily from the hospital bedside. Like,
yeah.
I didn't do the proper processes either. I didn't have time.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're just been getting it all cleaned up.
Mm-hmm.
Doing a retrospective on how we can shore up processes.
Yep.
How systems can be less dependent on me or Steven. Mm-hmm. And like, I want anyone on the production line being capable of receiving stock and purchasing stock.
Yep.
It used to be the case that the people who operated the lumens in the SMT line would buy their own components because my attitude was they knew best what they needed.
Yep.
I didn't track attrition closely, so I was like, they should be able to buy stuff.
Yep.
And getting more back to that will be really nice.
Yeah, I totally agree. But yeah, I mean, so far, I think like for the size company that we are, our balance is pretty good. Like we documented the stuff that kept the ship sailing. And even if we had to bail some things out here and there, like you said, we still did what we needed to do. My takeaway from this is like, you've done so much better of a job prepping for this than I have. Like I have written so few SOPs about stuff. Like I think I really need to, some of my stuff is weird, but I should codify more. It should be easier to hand off. Like some of it has to be legal, but also not a lot of it has to be legal.
Yeah. I remember asking you for an SOP on like how to extend an offer letter and hire someone and like add them to the workforce.
Yeah.
And the answer is a lot of it is that the software is self-evident, but there's still augmented things to be said atop that, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's stuff that can help flesh that kind of thing out. So yeah, that's a lot of what I need to do. Yeah, and that's kind of it. Like I think that's kind of it. Getting a liney build stuff, your SOP codified, maybe into OHI, maybe moving forward would be good, but you already have it written that we just discovered here. So maybe that would have just done everything fine.
Yeah.
And ingesting inventory, I wasn't sure how to do that. And you had to do a ton of that when you came back. It would have been nice if I could have done that as it came in.
Yeah. And that got tricky too, because there was an uningested inventory that people were depleting because they needed it. So like figuring out, I could go on.
Yeah. It was a lot of, it's just complicated. It's complicated knowing all the steps there. But it's making me like the idea of playbooks more and more because I found myself doing the same 8 things during pack out every week. It's like, oh yeah, I just need to do these 8 things every time.
Mm-hmm.
So, playbooks are cool for that. I think we should switch to sourcing at email for a lot of stuff. We should switch to an admin email. Like, I think that's something we can do in the future that will really help continue to, make this more robust.
Maybe there's a shared Alibaba account.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's perfect. When you said, feel free to poke me about work stuff, I should have taken that more literally and not been more hesitant to bother you as you were out.
Yeah.
Because that could have saved you some time coming back and us a little bit of heartache. But I was hesitant to do it, but I should have taken you at your word a little better.
It's tough, right? Like, yeah. I get it.
Yeah.
I would have loved a distraction at some points in that period.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
But I also had to focus on me a lot because that was a tough time.
Yep. Yep, absolutely. So, yeah, that's a tricky one. That's a tricky one. I think I'm going to go spend a lot of time making SOPs now.
Yeah.
There's so much stuff I'm looking at. I'm like, wow, yeah, I am the only one that knows how to do this. That's not good.
Like, we've been talking about bringing on an executive assistant, and like, they can't do anything unless they're told how.
Mm-hmm.
And like, sure, we could verbally tell them how, but if they quit, like, SOP is a much better way to intake the new one.
Yep. Yeah. And to make sure everyone's doing it the same way. If it's living in a brain, we're just electric meatballs. Like they're not hard coded. Like it's squishy. It's not deterministic, or we're just people. So it's going to vary. Like unless there's a system behind it, it's not going to be the same way every time.
And just to bring it home one more time, all of this is in the spirit of like continuing to do our best to document processes so that anyone's capable of doing anything.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
Because that's our best answer to the best test.
Totally. Yeah. It reminds me a little of like Formlabs had this internal wiki, which wasn't maintained super great, but like the idea was cool of like, if you needed to find out any information about any part of the company, you could go to this wiki and it would kind of send you in the right direction to learn that information. And in the situation where that is maintained well, and the SOPs live in that place, if I just didn't show up to work tomorrow and all my tasks needed to be maintained, there could be a wiki.opula.io, which does not exist. But if it did, Steven or like executive or engineering or whatever the categories of things are not being upheld now, you could go through and just see. Like anyone could see what the scope of any job is the ultimate, disseminated, if that's the right word, like distributed, person independent way of handling that, which might be a little overkill. But, it's nice to have it be such that all those things could be picked up. All right, I think that's it.
All right, folks, that's it for this one. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. It helps us out a ton. You can learn more about Opulo at opulo.io, as well as YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky. You can email us at podcast@opulo.io with questions or comments on the episode. To keep up to date with the podcast and Opulo, sign up for our newsletter where we write blog posts and conduct customer interviews with other folks building open hardware. That's it. We'll see you in the next one.
Thanks, everybody.
See ya.
It did. It was just hanging. I said, thanks, everyone. And then there was silence.
You should have added me in. You could have made me like the, hi, I'm Paul at the end of Jimmy Neutron.
Hi, I'm Paul.